Max Jacobs, are you at the point where of your fantasy football career where you're not going to buy into how great every rookie is and the rookie hype, or do you still get sucked in a little bit?
No, I get sucked in, but I mean, every what is it like beginning of April? I'm trading for dynasty rookie picks, and I'm thinking that my guy I'm getting at the 112 is going to be the best player since prime Calvin Johnson. I mean, there's always that kind of delusion in the
Yes.
preseason process, but no, I think this year specifically is a year that I'm probably out on almost every single player on consensus value, on most of them on dynasty value.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Well,
it's kind of ridiculous the consensus on a lot of these
right.
players.
Right. And you said it's like it's the shiny new toy type of thing right there. And but also it's what I'm starting to do, Max, is in Dynasty with rookies, like draft players that like other people like, just so they have some market value, right? Like if I'm trying to think of like a boring, like nobody wants Xavier Legette right now, right? The first round rookie on the Panthers. So, I might look to get some other guys. Like we were talking about Marvin Harrison before the lights went on, right? I mean, have you ever seen a rookie like even Jamar Chase was like wide receiver 14 when he was a rookie before the season started? I mean, wide receiver 6.
Yeah,
I mean, do you see any downside with Marvin? Like, you know what? Because I like that you will often poke holes in these guys and get people
yeah,
aggravated. That's like I think your superpower. What do you
yeah,
think the downside is? And again, it doesn't mean he's a bust, but what do you think
yeah.
is like the floor case for Marvin Harrison this year?
I think I mean the floor for Marvin Harrison is probably like and realistically, I think if he plays every single game, he's probably gonna produce what we think he'll do 1100 1150 yards 1200 yards, something like that. Could be significantly more, but that's what is probably the 85 percentile outcome. But the floor for him is probably maybe he misses a game or two his rookie year, comes back slow from an injury, like maybe kind of like the Jackson Smith and Jigba thing where like
Ooh, that's
maybe
bad.
yeah. I mean, maybe not quite that bad, like 600 yards or whatever, but like he has a hammy or just a little injury here and there that he misses a game, and then he plays half the snaps the next game, and it kind of lingers throughout the season. They're going to be so bad, they're not going to need him to play every snap of every game. They know what they got. So the floor for him is probably like 950 yards and 5 touchdowns on 60 catches. It's probably that. And,
Yeah.
and that would be a ginormous miss at his current value. So
Oh
especially
my
with Trey
God.
McBride, if McBride is 1100 yards, 8 touchdowns, getting targeted how he was last year, we could see Marvin Harrison not reach a 90 percentile outcome. So
Yeah, I mean Marvin Harrison, even if though let's just say he gets like 850 yards and like 6 touchdowns, right, on 74 catches, that is a pretty good. That is a pretty good rookie season. I mean, it would be a bust if you took him in redraft in the middle of the second round, but he'll get a pass from dynasty players. Right? They'll be like, okay, high pedigree, year one, so he probably won't lose much value even at his floor outcome. So I guess that does make him a good rookie pick.
yeah, I think in Dynasty he's a good pick anywhere. 1-1,
Yeah.
1-2, any later, obviously. I mean, we were just talking about this a second ago, but like you're gonna have players that people want, and you want to have those players. You don't want to have a Xavier Legette. You don't want to have a I don't know. I mean, even Ricky Pearsall is like not
Right.
really it's like, even though he's on an elite offense and it should be valued somewhat going into the future. I mean,
Adonai
Jonathan
Mitchell.
Brooks, AD Mitchell, yeah,
Yeah.
guys like that. Like Jonathan Brooks is like I think wide receiver 10 to 14 consensus, somewhere in that range, depending on what site you're looking at. And like that's a guy who tore an ACL, is on a horrible offense with a horrible offensive line, and there's still the running backs there. Like he's not a sexy asset, and you need
No.
those sexy assets because, in my mind, how I view dynasty and rookies in general, even I guess you can put this towards redraft, but there's only a certain number of like fleeces in your
Mm.
league. There's different periods of like sections in your league. There's the pre NFL draft process where everyone's trading for draft picks and you can fleece people for draft picks. There's the post NFL draft where you have people who land on teams that are really good situations and you can trade them. You can trade for guys who are in bad situations and you're hoping for upside later on. Like a Odunze would be like a perfect example of that.
Hmm.
And there's different like sections and times, and in each of those sections and times during the season there's a certain number of fleeces that can happen in your league each year, and if you drag your feet and you don't have the sexy assets, you are going to get left behind and other teams are going to make gains in terms of like their value of their team. So
Yeah. I think what you're talking about here is like the dynasty calendar, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's point scoring season, and then there's rookie draft season, and right, like Mike Evans, right? I always use him as like the perennial undervalued guy in dynasty. He goes in the second round of redraft, or third round, whatever it is, and like in these dynasty superflex startups, he's like a 10th round pick, 9th round pick, and Mike Evans is almost worth nothing in January and February in these dynasty leagues, and then you get into point scoring season, and he's got 8 for 90 and 2 touchdowns in week 1, and everyone, there's some value there. And that also holds true for the rookies, right? Like the rookies have Marshawn Lloyd, the running back on the Green Bay Packers, right? Like everyone wants him, 3rd round pick. He's going to push AJ Dillon out of the way. And then what happens? Week 1 inactive or something like that, right, Max?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens all the time. I mean, guys like Trey Benson are super hyped up right now because he's got an injury-prone old James Conner in front of him, and I like Trey Benson. I think his film is incredible. I'm in on Trey Benson, but this is just an example. Like, what if he plays, 15 snaps week 1, less than that, and I don't even remember the guy's name. What was it? Eric Democ?
Amari DeMarcado?
Whatever. Yeah, that guy.
Amari. Yeah.
Yeah, Amari. Yeah. I mean, what if he's the RB2 again?
Right.
And
it's Michael Carter's there.
Yeah, Michael Carter's there. What if he's catching passes? Like,
right.
It's there's so many little things that affect dynasty. Like a guy that I want pretty much nothing to do with at his current price is Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman has this like aura to him because he's super likable. Everyone saw that interview about him, talking about how he golfs and how he's Tiger wish he could and not Tiger Woods or whatever. And like he's likable, cool dude. Like I like Keon Coleman, but like let's not forget this dude is on a team with Curtis Samuel, Dalton Kincaid, and a team that is going to be run heavy. And at the end of the year, they pass the ball 20 times a game because it's snowing every single game.
Right. And you know what, you said something though. I want to like bring these two thoughts together here because Keon Coleman is like the poster child for polarization, right? Because he was the 33rd overall pick in the NFL draft. So he's quote a second rounder, but come on, is there really a difference between one extra pick? You'd rather him be with Josh Allen than with Bryce Young, right? And be one or two more picks forward, in the first round and be a quote first round. So would you draft someone like Keon Coleman, even though you don't like him and you know that the setup is probably bad, just knowing that there's going to be someone in your market, in your league that does like he is the most polarizing rookie.
Yeah. I mean, I think just because he's on a team where there really isn't an alpha, there isn't a wide receiver 1, and like he's with Josh Allen, tied to Josh Allen, obviously you can sell that. Like any player that I can sell like a car salesman and get you to take a 17% interest rate on a 72-month loan, like I'm gonna do that, right? Like Keon Coleman's a perfect example of that. Like I can sell to somebody who wants to move on from like I don't know what would be.
We'll use Mike Evans, man. That's the perfect. Yeah. That's a dynasty trade right there.
Yeah. Like I mean, dude, if I have Keon Coleman and I'm a contending team and I don't need him to produce for me, I'm gonna trade Keon Coleman for an old producing receiver at like week 8 who I know is in a good situation. I'm gonna get him, an old guy, and I'm gonna get like 2 second-round picks on top, or maybe even ask for a first. Like, and I'm gonna do that and snowball the value of a guy who's right now all hype. I couldn't find the exact report, but I heard from a good buddy of mine, DNR Sports. He's done huge stuff in the fantasy industry too. A lot of people know him really well.
Yeah, I follow DNR Sports. I follow that.
Yeah. Dan's a good dude. He was telling me the other day that there was a report that came out that one of the coaches on Buffalo was saying that Keon Coleman needs to develop a lot as a route runner. I couldn't find the report. I only looked for like 5
I saw it as well. I did see it.
Yeah. So I haven't read it, but that's not a good thing to hear. When you're saying bad things about a rookie as a coach, right? That is a horrible sign. Horrible sign.
It's ignore the good and listen to the bad with the preseason hype, right?
Yeah. So like, and again, Keon Coleman was never a route runner in college, but like you go back and watch the film of him, and it's like they give Johnny Wilson more targets per game. Like, and like I was watching the film, and I'm like, dude, Johnny Wilson is like clearly a number 1 on this team for whatever reason. That could just be the offensive coordinator there was just stupid. It could be whatever. But like that's got to raise some eyebrows, just that he wasn't some alpha in college, and he doesn't have the skill set of an alpha wide receiver 1 in the NFL. He's just a really athletic, like big guy who's going to catch everything, and that's great. But that's the T. Higgins archetype, and like those guys are never elite dynasty assets. Like look at everyone who's elite in dynasty right now. You have the Amon-Ra St. Browns, the Justin Jeffersons, the Jamar Chases, the CeeDee Lambs. Those guys aren't just big guys who can catch. Those guys are all technician route runners who can do everything and play after the catch and all that kind of stuff. So I saw Brock Bowers pop up. That's
Yeah, that
talk
we'll
about,
we'll get there. We'll get there.
yeah.
I didn't mean to do that. That's a little preview because
Yeah.
we're gonna get there and talk about. We're gonna really. I mean, all right. You know what? Let's do it now. We already crapped on Keon Coleman a little bit, right? Yeah. And by the way, it's not. I know it's like a crutch to say Keon Coleman will be better in best ball. You know what I'm saying? Because of the spike weeks, but like I always make the joke. You know who's better in best ball, Max? Every single player.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you never start a lineup. So of course they're gonna be better.
Right,
Yeah,
of course,
no,
everyone.
yeah.
But I get the sentiment that guys that are volatile are obviously better. Like Deshaun Jackson, Will Fuller, those were the type of guys from 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
And now who's the classic better in best ball player now? Who's like the ultimate boom bust receiver nowadays?
Debo Samuel's up there. I mean,
yes, and T. Higgins. I mean, pick your Texan, right? Those guys are going to be the better in best ball players this year.
Yeah.
All right, I hinted at Brock Bowers. We brought him up here, so we'll talk a little Brock Bowers. Tight end too, when the rookie season started, in just how the market was valuing tight ends. There's a lot of downside here with Brock Bowers. I mean, right now sitting at tight end 4 in our dynasty rankings behind Laporta, McBride, and Kincaid. I mean, this is another player with Bowers that people are split on. They're split on the landing spot. So Brock Bowers, what's the downside? Well, where are you at on him, and what is the downside?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much downside. I mean, oh my gosh, I wish I had the tweet, but I saw a report that came out. I think I saw it yesterday, and it was like, we want our tight ends to earn their keep in the receiving game through blocking. And I think Brock Bowers will do that. I think he will earn that. He's an elite blocker. In my mind, him and Kyle Pitts are like 1-to-1 in terms of prospects coming out of college. Like he's, elite prospects, best of the best, borderline greatest of all time. But that doesn't change that we're in the business of predicting outcomes based off of situations, not in the business of just hoping that, apples will make orange juice. And like, that's not going to happen with Brock Bowers, like he's got Michael Mayer there. They got Devontae Adams. No quarterback.
Let me ask you this. So is it landing spot with Bowers? Like if he would have landed, I mean, what would have been a good spot with the Bengals or with the Colts?
Chargers would have been great.
Chargers, right?
Yeah.
So then you would have been more bullish on him. It's just purely the landing spot.
He would have been, if he would have went to like a good team that's going to use him and give him a lot of work in the receiving game, he would have very, very easily been my tight end 1, like even over Sam Laporta.
How about the Jets? Would that have done it for you?
Yeah, maybe not the Jets. He probably would have still been below McBride and Laporta for me if he went to the Jets. But like Chargers, he probably would have been my tight end 1. A couple other spots too. But like the Raiders is like pretty much as bad as it gets. I feel like. I mean, you have no quarterback situation. You just paid Gardner Minshew. They're not going to be bad enough to get a top quarterback in this draft class. They're not going to trade a bunch of picks to go get a quarterback in this draft class. They still have Devontae Adams. They still have Jacoby Myers, who they love. Their coach has been raving about Trey Tucker. It's like they got. I mean, obviously Josh Jacobs is gone, but Zamir White should get a bunch of work. I mean,
do you remember the last couple weeks of Zamir White last year? I'm not saying that he's like a great player, but they were an established the run team, right? So that you can bank on, 25 to 30 runs a game.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and why would they sling the rock 50 times a game? With Gardner Minshew, they're not stupid. They got. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the Michael Mayer thing because. A lot of fantasy players are just like, it's the end of Michael Mayer. I mean, he was a high second-round pick last year, and now he's dead because they drafted Brock Bowers. It seems like the Raiders didn't really plan on Brock Bowers. Seems like they wanted a quarterback, but when both of those guys went off the board, they're like, hey, like a good dynasty player, you just take the best player on your board.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it had to do with Bo Nix getting taken, in my mind, 3 rounds too early, and just how that crazy quarterback run went those first 12 picks. So like, when you have your best player available, you take him, even if you have Michael Mayer. And it makes sense to me. I think Michael Mayer had the potential to be like a fringe top 10 tight end in the NFL, but Brock Bowers has the upside to be like the next George Kittle. So like you take the next George Kittle. You don't let that slide. So I don't think Brock Bowers, or excuse me, I don't think Michael Mayer has legitimately zero value, but first off, no one's going to trade for him in your league. So probably zero value off that alone. And 2, he's never going to have like I don't even know if he'll ever eclipse 700 receiving yards again. I mean, I could even say 500, and I wouldn't feel horrible about saying that.
Oh,
So yeah, it's tough. Like he's never gonna have that year unless for whatever reason they revert back to early 2000s football and run 2 tight end sets and they both get peppered with targets. But with Adams there, I don't see that happening. And with the current quarterback situation, why would Michael Mayer be a priority?
I want to usually at the top of the podcast, I kind of take like the body count of my guests. How many leagues? I know you're just doing like a million things this year with like betting and content creation, Max. So what's going to be your league count? Have you got it under control this year? Give me your, are you at least in a couple dynasty? How many redrafts? Give me what you project your sheet to look like.
This might be taboo for me to say this. I stopped playing redraft.
Yeah, no, it's not taboo. It's not taboo.
Yeah, I don't know. I stopped playing redraft. I don't get anything out of it. I mean, I really don't like it anymore. I draft a Saquon Barkley and tears his ACL, and my whole season's over in week 2. It's like
right, and there's no trading. There's no trading.
It's like I can't trade a ACL torn player. So yeah, I don't know. Redraft to me feels a little silly now. I don't play it anymore. I'm in 2 dynasty leagues. I wanna be in a third one, but I'm pretty picky with the dynasty leagues I want to be in. Like I want to be in a league where like trades are happening every day. Like I want to be in a league. Yeah, super active. I want to be in a league where people are talking crap to each other every single day, talking about how bad teams are. I want to be in a trade where I want to be in a league where there's a team that has not a single startable player and 20 draft picks. I want chaos. I don't want some dynasty league where like it's been 2 months since the last trade and no one talks in the general sleeper chat. Like I want leagues that are active, so I kind of pick and choose the leagues I'm in. So yeah, only 2 dynasty leagues. I'll draft a bajillion best ball teams, obviously, but
that is like, that's a slot machine for me. The best ball teams, right? Like, oh, done. Start another one. Oh, got like, constantly my phone notifications are going off. I do slow drafts. I do fast drafts. I do them on all platforms. Yeah, that. And also that's like I think when you're creating content podcasts, obviously your TikTok and Instagram, that is the best way to know where players are going and where they're valued, because if you're just like looking at ADP, you don't have like a real feel for it, right? It's like knowing that the receivers go crazy on underdog, but on DraftKings, it's a little softer marketplace. And you're not going to know that unless you have, even if it's $5 stake in the game, you don't have to do, $50, $25 underdog drafts to have your pulse there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, redraft is by far the worst right now.
I do still do a couple redraft leagues because I get sucked into auctions, and I don't even like auctions, but when I'm in it to do one, it's no big deal.
It's but cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just 3 hours, and
takes a while.
It's a while.
Auction's tough. I've only done one auction league, and the draft was such a pain to me.
But
it was cool though. Like it was so different that it was cool.
Yep.
But it definitely does feel a little outdated though at this point.
It's like doing a foursome. It's like It's cool, but it's like too much going on.
Yeah, it's like let's just stick with 3. Why are we trying to why are we trying to reinvent the wheel, right? Like
exactly. Yeah. You think I'm sick. I'm in 41 dynasty leagues. It's hell, Max. It's complete hell. And especially with our content schedule, our responsibilities. And now you have to set your lineup on Thursday with the Thursday players, and then you have to take them out of your flex. And it's complete hell. It's horrible. I don't recommend it. The only dynasty leagues I'm going to get into going forward are best ball dynasty, because there's no lineup setting, but it does take some of the,
take some of the skill out of it.
Yep.
I mean, 41's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And obviously, I have a handful that are more money that I care about more. I have a bunch of $30, $40 leagues that someone's like, hey, can you jump in with RotoWire guy? So that's fine because I love drafting. But anyway, I'm here with Max Jacobs, and we're talking about downside of rookies. And Max, we talked about a few guys already that are kind of at the top here, and I want to stick with Odunze because I think that there's nobody that everyone likes Odunze. And Odunze's situation. I know. It reminds me a lot of CD Lamb being blocked. But what is the downside of Odunze now that he's on the Chicago Bears?
Oh man, it's tough. I mean, I want to preface this before I say anything about Odunze. I'm not some NFL scout, so when I watch film, I'm not looking at it the same way that an NFL scout is or someone who's super versed in this. But I watched a lot of Odunze tape this offseason, and it's impressive seeing the hands catching, and 50-50 balls aren't 50-50 balls. They're 75-25 balls, and that's cool. Outside of that, though, when I was watching him, a lot was left to be desired in terms of route running, versatility, athleticism, in terms of speed, explosiveness, stuff like that. Obviously, he can jump. And And like that, again, that archetype of player, one, never translates to an elite dynasty receiver ever. Like you look at pretty much everybody in the top 10 right now. Like if I just bring up a consensus ranking, like CeeDee Lamb, Jefferson, Chase, Amon-Ra, Marvin Harrison, Gary Wilson, Puka Nacua, AJ Brown, Malik Neighbors, Tyreek Hill. Not a single player I just named is a jump ball possession receiver. Not a single one. They're all either elite after the catch, elite technician route runners, or can do everything. So I don't think a guy with that skill set makes sense in terms of a guy who's going to be a 1,500 yard, 100 reception receiver at some point in his career. Not only that, he's behind Keenan Allen, who's going to get peppered with targets, whether we want to admit it or not, if he's healthy, and then DJ Moore. So I don't think the situation is good for him long term. Obviously, maybe in 3 years from now, when DJ Moore's 30, maybe he'll have that breakout season. But the breakout might be like 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. It's not going to be worth a guy who we look at the 9th overall pick and we think this guy has elite draft capital as a receiver. He should be like the wide receiver 13, 14, and consensus. But to me, there's probably 20 receivers I'd rather have in Dynasty. So I think with where he's being valued right now, like it's an immediate sell for me. I had a league that I traded Rome Odunze and Brian Thomas Jr. for Garrett Wilson.
Ooh, okay.
If that gives anybody that's probably like a little bit of an overpay in terms of value, but like, yeah, I felt great about it. So if I'm a Rome Odunze guy, if I have him for whatever reason he fell to me in the draft, I'm doing everything I can to sell him before he inevitably has a bad rookie year and then his like consensus drops.
But let me ask you this, because I agree with you here that Rome Odunze is C blocked a little bit, right? Because of Keenan Allen. I mean, say what you want, old man, but the guy like was wide receiver 3 before he got hurt last year. I know it's a different situation. And then, I mean, DJ Moore is like perennial undervalued player in a real life. He was wide receiver 1 in his class when he got drafted. So Rome Odunze, don't you think though, if he has like a down season, that the dynasty market will like give him a pass because they're like, oh, Keenan Allen's 34 now. And so he'll still maintain some of that. But I like the getting out of him now thing, right? Especially because his value will drop. It's like Chris Olave from year 1 to year 2. Like he's still a top 15 receiver, but no one's like really like pushing anyone out of the way to get Chris Olave on their team right now.
Yeah, it just kind of depends on like the strategy for Dynasty. That's obviously what drives every decision you should make is what you're going for. For me, when I play Dynasty, I look only to have players, for the most part. Obviously, it's possible to have only players, but I look to have only players that have a chance to increase in value over the course of the next 6 months. Yeah. So I don't think guys like Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, guys like that really can't increase in value in my mind.
Right.
I don't know how they could. Like even like a Jackson Smith and Jigba, really, they're going to pass the ball more this year. But like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are still there. You know, Smith your quarterback. Like there are just certain guys that if I don't like Malik Neighbors is actually a perfect example of this. If Malik Neighbors goes out there and catches 850 yards and 4 touchdowns on 55 catches with the dog bleep Giants and has Daniel Jones as a quarterback and no future whatsoever, like we don't know who his quarterback's going to be, rookie, whatever. Like he's not going to be the wide receiver 9 this time next year. Right. He's going to be like the wide receiver 15. So like, do you want to own an asset that, in my mind, is almost guaranteed to decrease? Like probably not. You probably want to trade for a guy who you think can increase, and then you can keep gaining value. But
right, like would it surprise you if Michael Pittman is valued higher next year at 27 years old than Malik Neighbors? Right, like
probably not. Like
right,
yeah, probably not. If he goes out and gets 130 targets from Anthony Richardson, goes for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns on 100 catches, like I probably take that over Malik Neighbors if I'm. It's just off consensus 1-to-1 value. Obviously, situations for your team change things, but
let's play a little either or with Rome Odunze, okay? I'm going to say, and it sounds like you're going to take the or on all these, but I want people to hear it. Rome Odunze or Devontae Smith? Dynasty.
Oh, yeah. I think I still take Rome Odunze there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nico Collins.
Nico Collins, for sure.
Okay. Brandon Ayuk with his uncertainty.
Ayuk, not even a question. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to get a little spicier now. Zay Flowers.
Oh, Rome Odunze.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And now Tyreek Hill with his age 30.
Tyreek, yeah, not even.
All right.
Because Tyreek wins you a league, though. Like obviously we play Dynasty to get the young, sexy guys and hopefully be good for 5 years or whatever. But like the only goal should be winning a ring. And if you can get a receiver who's going to have 25 points per game and help you win a ring, you do that.
Max, there's a famous poll that I reference often that was on Twitter, and it blows my mind to this day. And it asked Dynasty players, what's your favorite part of Dynasty Fantasy Football? And though it was the majority, it was only like 33% was winning, right? Like
Yeah.
it was like 28% was like trading. Another one was like rebuilding. Another one was like the draft. But winning, though it was the majority, was only a third, which, by the way, is part of like dynasty strategy. Is like, fine, after the startup, everyone loves their team, but by year 2 or year 3, you're not competing against 11 other people in your league. You're competing against like 4.
Yeah. And really, like in one of my leagues last year, we had more people who were competing for higher draft picks than were for a title at the end of the year, because we had 2 teams that were like so much better than everybody else that we were like, okay, well, they're going to be in the chip. I just need to worry about getting the best draft pick I can get, so I can go for next year. And a lot of teams take that outcome.
How do you prevent tanking in your leagues? What's the mechanism that's in place?
I mean, my league's a little, we're a little like, I wouldn't if I call it new age about this. Like, we call it a clean tank is what we call it in my league. And like,
explain that. I think I know what you mean, but I want to hear.
Yeah.
People are always asking me about like, how do you prevent tanking, or what's the right way to tank? So explain.
Yeah.
This.
I think the right way to tank is you should have some skill involved. Like last year, for example, I was tanking last year, and in my main league, and I had like Dallas Goedert, Cole Kmet, and like Dalton Schultz, and like I would, I think Cole Kmet was better week to week, but like I would start like Dalton Schultz, on purpose, just to try to lose, or I would drop a defense and I would pick up whoever's playing the Chiefs, or like pick up whoever's playing a really good offense. I would pick up a kicker who hasn't kicked many field goals during the year,
right. Or in a bad weather kicker or something.
Yeah, whatever. Like end of the season, pick up a kicker who's kicking in 50-mile-an-hour winds. Stuff like that. You can get we get a little more cheeky with it. Like I'm the commission this league, and I allow my league mates to, if they have rookie, let's say they have like Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison. Let's say they have those 3 rookies, and those are the only 3 rookies they have on their team. Throw them in your taxi squad, and you don't even have to start them. And you can start Rashid Shaheed. But again, if you have like AD Mitchell on your starting roster, but Marvin Harrison's on your taxi, you got to start Marvin Harrison. So you can't get too crazy with it, but stuff like that I think is really good. I traded for a bunch of injured players last year. That's another way to clean tank.
That's another way to do it. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, this is how we prevent it in our league, and it causes some controversy, but it's good. It's not good for any one team. It's always about what's good for the league. So the bottom 6 teams go into a random lottery. So it doesn't matter if you're the 12 seed or the 7 seed. We're doing a lottery. Now, we're doing a lottery for each round of the rookie draft. We do a 5-round rookie draft, right? Some people do 3, some people do 4. So you can end up with the 1-1, the 2-3, the 3-5. You know what I'm saying? Like we do a random draw for each round. So the people that say, hey, I was the worst team, I deserve the 1-1. That's just, sure, maybe, but usually team 7 and team 12, they're not that far apart. I mean, you could argue yes, but that's how we do it. And then we incentivize winning because it's fantasy football. Anyone can win in any week by giving a cash prize each week. Because tanking, it's not so much that I care about the tanking for the teams that are raced to the bottom. It's that situation, and this one, Max, where I need you to win to beat the guy so I can get into the playoffs, and you're trying to lose. So we try to incentivize with the $25 a week prize. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, we haven't put anything in place like that. Like ours is a typical like whoever got last gets the first overall pick thing, which it's
complicated.
It's tough because like the only thing is like that I could see that would clash. Like if I had a really horrible team in that league, and like I know I need to break it down and like play for the future. Like if I'm the worst team, I want Caleb Williams. I don't want to get the 1-5 and be stuck with JJ McCarthy. Like that would piss me off. But like I get why you do it though, because tanking can get ridiculous though sometimes. Yeah,
it's not good for any one team. It's good for the league. And how many times have we seen like in I forget what year it was, but like Zach Wilson was going ahead of Jamar Chase in rookie drafts, right? Like you're like, oh my God, thank God I didn't have the 3rd pick or the 4th pick. Thank God I had the 6th pick. I mean, sometimes it works out in your favor, but I get some pushback, but the league is healthy. It's one of the other thing we do with trading, because how many times do you see these lopsided trades in your league? You're like, I would have given you more. Is we institute in my main league a trade match.
Oh, I hate that.
Explain. Let me give you the basics. So like, let's say for example, You have Patrick Mahomes, and I'm trading for him. So I give you Deshaun Watson and a first-round pick, and everyone's like, "What? What the hell is that?" Everyone can match the trade, and then you, as the Patrick Mahomes guy, can accept any of the matches or give me one more chance. You get 24 hours to match.
Yeah.
So basically, what it does is it keeps the league health in mind. Why do you hate it?
Well, I think it's probably good for league health and not having one team that's super broken, right? But again though, like I am one of those people who I think like if you're super active on waivers and you are grinding 24/7 to hit up somebody for a trade, you're getting cheeky with it. You're picking up players, backup running backs, and you're selling them for a second round pick when someone goes down. Like all the little effort things in dynasty fantasy football should be rewarded. What I don't like is that scenario. Like let's say I have Patrick Mahomes, and let's say there's a guy in the league who's like never active, doesn't talk in the chat, comes in and offers me an extra first from what you offered. Well, me and you spent 2 hours negotiating, and I'm just stupid, so I didn't realize I can get more. Right. And because some guy who never checks the league chat sees that there's a trade pending, he checks it, he comes in, oh, I'll give him one extra first. Comes in, gets the trade. You wasted 2 hours of your life negotiating with me. Like that to me feels stupid. But
now again, that is definitely what happens. But the other guy feels great. Like so, this league this match rule, it definitely puts one person on tilt. The person who gets bought over. But I would say 95% of the trades never get matched, right? Because people don't have the assets. Yeah. And I remember one time, like when Adrian Peterson was on his last legs, like someone offered a third and then someone needed a running back that week and he had a clarified start. They offered a second. Like that's usually the extent of it. We don't get a lot of these mega trades. It just protects the stars. But yes, listen, it's a constant debate in our league and it causes a lot of fights. But meanwhile, the league's been going for a while.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Before we continue, I want to let everybody know that the podcast, RotoWire Dynasty podcast today is brought to you by DraftKings Pick 6. I know you do a lot of pick'em games. Have you messed around with Pick 6 yet?
I haven't. You'll have to explain it to me.
Yeah, well, Pick 6, again, it's exactly what it sounds like, the Pick 6. It's and I'll put everything in the video description below. It's DraftKings' attempt to get at PrizePicks, to get it underdog, right? I mean, they did a good job, I have to admit. Like, they did design the product really well. So I'll put our code and you can double your deposit and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I know that you've basically you do great content around pick'em games and giving out picks and doing affiliate stuff. So is that still your? Yeah, is that still your? Yeah, right. Could be another affiliate for you if you.
More of I'll check it out for to play, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. For those who are just getting introduced to you for the first time, Max. Max has built a tremendous stable of content and a following on social media, on Instagram and of course TikTok and your Twitter. I follow it. I love following you on Twitter there with your takes, and you're doing a lot of betting content. I've noticed that you've expanded. I wasn't going to say pivot off because you still love fantasy football, but what was talk a little bit about your expansion into the betting world?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm getting paid. Right. I mean, let's not. I'm not gonna say I'm not. I mean, any big creator that people are seeing online that's promoting an affiliate link, code, whatever, they're obviously getting paid for it. That's how people make their money in this industry. Shocker. Anyways, but
I don't think that you're saying that like it's like it's a shameful thing. It's not.
No, it's not. Yeah, I mean, I'm still putting a lot of work to give out good picks for betting, and I want people to win. Everything I put out, I'm betting myself. So if I'm losing, I'm losing with you. But
but also I just want to jump in here for a second. This is the thing that I don't think that now in 2024. When someone's following your picks or following your account, they're not following you because with the expectation of winning for the most part. I follow you because I love your takes on things. I like how you see things, and I think it's good entertainment. Now, if I want to tell you, that's my issue, but I think entertainment value and in depth of knowledge is really what wins in 2024 social media.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree. I mean, I think being likable on social media is really important, or not,
or hateable.
Or not likable. I mean, I early on in my career, I was very not likable, and that was people liked to not like me. So there's a whole dynamic there. But
you were the Iron Sheik. Do you remember the Iron Sheik? That's what I know. It's before your time.
Yes, he was before my time, but I've heard of it before though.
Right. Sure. He was the most hateable. He was the most people loved to hate him. And who is the most hateable but loved hateable wrestler in modern times in the last 20 years?
Exactly. Yeah.
Who's it going to be? Who do you think that would be now? Is it?
I mean, I don't even know.
I don't follow anymore, man.
Yeah, I don't follow anymore. I follow when I was a kid, when I was really
Anyway, so
Yeah. But
So
back
what?
to back to what we were saying. But like when it comes to like more betting content, like it just makes sense. One, in terms of deals that I have going on, and two, like a lot of what I've noticed with fantasy football content is fantasy football content is great from like for me right now until like week 8. Because majority of people play redraft. And I don't talk about dynasty on my TikTok pages and stuff because the market's just a little too small.
It's niche.
Yeah, it's niche. Like, and so people who are playing fantasy football are usually, if you're usually half, if not more, are tapped out by week 8 because they know they're not competing for a chip or they're injured or out of the playoffs, whatever. So like a lot of the viewership and people who are searching for fantasy football videos by week 8 is like cut in half. So those videos are in turn not going to do as well. So what does do well every single week in and week out is betting stuff. And people want to bet. They want to gamble on games. They want to bet on a player prop. They want to give themselves a little they want to stress themselves out watching the game, give themselves a little, they want to have a stake in the game. Yeah, they want a little bit of sweat. They want to. Yeah. It's different watching a game when you have a bet on it than when you just are watching it for fun.
Yep.
So
I can watch college Division II lacrosse if I got a little stake.
Exactly.
In the game.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Korean
ping pong at 2:00.
The other joke we make. Yeah, you said Korean ping pong. We always say that a degenerate gambler when they have a bet on Hawaii, the school, because it's the last one of the night and you're chasing. It's the 11 p.m. start. I'm here with Max Jacobs, and we're talking about the downside of rookies. I'm just going to cue you up here with Jayden Daniels because the expectations is this is the next RG3 with the obvious parallels, the draft position, the team. What's the bear case for Jayden Daniels?
Gosh, that's such BS. I mean, I'm so far out on Jayden Daniels, I can't even. I'm if Jayden Daniels is on Earth, I'm in Neptune. I'm gone. I'm out there.
QB 11 in redraft. I mean, he's higher than that in dynasty. So why out on Daniels?
There's so many different reasons. I mean,
floor is yours.
I mean, where do I start? Okay, I think first off, before I preface anything, Jayden Daniels is a current Justin Fields player. He's Justin Fields right now. That's him right now. He's Justin Fields right now, but he took 3 years longer to break out in college. He is skinnier, way more reckless, and needed Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors to even look decent in college, right? Obviously, he looked amazing this past year, but like he didn't look like an NFL caliber quarterback before that. So when I look at just that on a base level, right? He needed year 5 to actually break out in college. He needed Malik Neighbors. He needed Brian Thomas Jr. in an elite offensive line. And it's this archetype of like the Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields kind of players where they only throw outside the numbers. They don't throw over the middle of the field. They will not step up and take a hit and deliver a hit when it's coming right in their face. They will make every single excuse in the book to slip out and run. Jayden Daniels is reckless. I think a big issue when it comes to the actual statistical side of it is the Commanders have a horrible offensive line. Sam Howell took 65 sacks last year. He was pressured the most in the NFL, 161 times. Right. So when he's pressured that much, we got to look at, okay, is it the quarterback? Is it the offensive line? Is it a combination of both? With Justin Fields in recent years, it's been a combination of both, right? We look at recent quarterbacks drafted over the last like 3 or 4 draft classes. Sam Howell was second in pressure to sack rate. In college, coming into the draft, he was second pressure to sack rate.
Explain what that is in layman's terms. This the pressure to sack rate.
Yeah. So it's like the amount of times he's pressured and the amount of times he takes a sack. So like a lot of quarterbacks can be pressured but not take a sack, throwing the ball away,
escaping,
right. Making a throw while they're getting hit, like all that kind of stuff. Really, it's the elusiveness of a quarterback and their game IQ to not take a sack.
Right.
Really.
You often hear that sacks are a quarterback stat, not necessarily an offensive line stat.
And I agree with that because a lot of times an offensive line realistically can only block for 2.5, maybe 2.6, 2.7 seconds if they're good. If an offensive line blocks for 4 seconds and everyone's locked up on the defensive line, but eventually people just get through because they're tired, offensive linemen get tired. They're 300-pound behemoths and they take a sack. It's not the offensive lineman's fault. And in that regard, Jayden Daniels was 4th on that list in terms of pressure to sack rate in college. So not only are you taking an insane amount of sacks in college with a good offensive line, now you're going to a team that has a horrible offensive line with a quarterback who had the same issue in college, had the same issue transitioning to the NFL where he had 65 sacks on a bad offensive line, got pressured a shit ton, and you expect something to change here in this situation if you're Washington. What's going to change? Nothing's going to change. He's going to be under pressure every single snap. He can't read a defense. He can't throw over the middle of the field. He's reckless when he runs. He's 185 pounds or whatever. I mean, give me a break. What is there to like about this guy? I don't see the upside at all.
You don't think even you compared him to Justin Fields, and the bad part, but Justin Fields, anytime he started, was like a top 5 projection quarterback for that week. You don't see the upside for fantasy football, Max?
I see that's our fantasy football for this year and next year probably when you're taking second overall, you're going to get 2 years of starting no matter how bad you are.
Right.
So
Zach Wilson.
Yeah. Perfect example. And like if he is going to the injury concerns, that's scary for me. I mean, the Florida State hit with Jayden, does that ring a bell? Mm-hmm. Everyone knows it. He runs up through the A gap or B gap and gets absolutely clobbered because he jumps in the air. And it's like I'm sure Washington is like, hey, never do this shit again. I'm sure they're telling him this, but like when you get in a game,
your instincts kick. Yeah, it's like you could rehearse all you want when the fire alarm goes off. You see how people really behave, right? Like pushing old ladies and babies out of the way to get out of the building. Totally. Where are you at on the other quarterbacks? Where are you at on like Bo Nix? I mean, even if you didn't like him coming into, you have to. I do respect the draft capital. I know that Denver probably could have gotten him in the second round, but they didn't have a second round pick. Yeah. I mean, top 12. I mean, even Kenny Pickett a couple of years ago was drafted in like the 19s or 20s. I mean, this is top 12. This is real draft capital, Max.
Yeah, it's tough for me with Bo Nix. I think the quarterback makes perfect sense for the situation. We look at Sean Payton. The whole reason he hated Russell Wilson is because he played out of structure, and all Bo Nix is a robot. He listens blindly to whatever you're going to call for him. If you just watch those Oregon games, it's like his first read is not open and he like panics immediately. He's kind of like when you're teaching a 15-year-old to drive in a parking lot and like they're fine in the parking lot, they go on the street and they're like panicked because like, oh my God, there's cars around me. It's like, I think it'll be kind of like that with Bo Nix, where like he's not going to have Troy Franklin and Bucky Irving and all these Tez Johnson, I believe his name is, come out next year.
Was it Tez Johnson or Tez Walker?
I think one of those two. Tez Walker probably. Yeah, one of those two. He's great. I watched his tape. He's good. He'll be good next year. But like when you have all these playmakers and you're playing a weak schedule, and I mean, the dude had what 5,000 plus passing yards and always passed with the line of scrimmage. I mean,
the A dot was low for sure.
A dot's low. I mean, I don't know. I look at that team and I'm like, Troy Franklin, Cortland Sutton, bad offensive line, no running backs that are I'm excited about on a defense that was abysmal last year. It's like, what is he going to do from a fantasy perspective? Like, if he passes for 20 touchdowns this year, I'm going to be shocked.
Right. Well, one of his best comparables is like Derek Carr. Now, for fantasy, if you draft this guy, I mean, in dynasty rookie drafts, like Superflex, right? And obviously in single quarterback, we're not thinking about Bo Nix or in dynasty leagues, but he's a Superflex asset, right? You're getting him late in the first round, early in the second round. I mean, if he ends up being Derek Carr, Alex Smith, which was like QB 18. I mean, Derek Carr did have a top 5 season, but I mean, you're still happy with that based on the cost, right? I mean, like he's going to at least be a 14, 15 point floor each week in on your Superflex team.
I think that's the case if he reaches like a 90th percentile outcome, though.
Wow.
I think like when you watch the tape on him, like he's just not impressive in like any way. Like there's not a single thing that Bo Nix does, and I'm like, yeah, that's an elite trait that will translate to the NFL. Like, I don't think he's wildly accurate. I don't think he has a cannon. I don't think he's an insane athlete. I don't think he puts balls on the money or in a bucket. He doesn't do anything well. Like I watched multiple all 22 film games of him, and every single game I had a moment where I'm laughing at how bad of a play it was from Bo Nix. Like, so it's tough. Like I don't see the upside with a quarterback who in my mind should be like a 3rd round pick. Like, right. And it's like, obviously the draft capital suggests that he'll have multiple years of starting and get the chance, but like I would be surprised if this guy even reaches a second contract. Like I really would.
This is like Desmond Ridder from last year.
Yeah. If he went in the first round, yeah. It'd be like
right. Well, there was Desmond Ridder in the first round talk last year.
Yeah,
remember that?
It was. And I wonder if Bo Nix would have went in the first round if Denver wasn't at 12.
No.
I don't think he would have. So no. It's tough. Like he does have the draft capital, and it's clearly Sean Payton loves him. But like it's just so tough for me with a guy who should have went after pick 50. It's so tough. I don't know.
Right. Well, with with Bo Nix, I have to ask you about Michael Penix because obviously, all right, forget if we think Atlanta made a good pick. They made the pick. So now we're just going to talk about the fantasy football and dynasty outlook for Michael Penix here. Now, you were talking about players that could only gain value next year in 6 months and 18 months from now.
Yeah.
I think Michael Penix, based on what you have to pay that like early second round pick in super flex leagues, and he can only go up in value, even if he doesn't play a snap, Max.
Oh yeah, I mean he'll be worth a first round pick this time next year off in the offseason. Easily.
And if he gets a clarified start this year and it does well, it's more than that.
Oh yeah, if for some reason they miss the playoffs and they're out of the playoffs, he's gonna start like week 18, and we're gonna see what he is.
Yeah.
So there's that. I think Michael Penix is a guy that I would want to roster. Michael Penix is the perfect player to go trade for if you have a clean tanking team. Like,
right.
If you want to lose on purpose, like it's funny. You know him, Mason. In my league, this is just a buddy of mine. For those who are watching, not a lot of context here, but
and by the way, an employee of RotoWire now.
So. Yeah, smart guy, knows a lot about fantasy. He has a clean tank team right now, and he just traded for Michael Penix. And it's like that's his QB2. So I think in Superflex leagues, getting a Michael Penix if you can't win this year and trying to increase your draft pick is like the best thing you can do.
Here was my draft. So in the leagues where I was a Final Four team, like say I had the 110, 111, 112, something like that in the rookie draft because I was a Final Four, I took Michael Penix. I didn't take Brian Thomas because here's my plan, right? My team is good enough to still get back there. And there's a couple, and this was also, I looked at the rosters of the teams that I thought would be bottom 3 or bottom 4. I'm going to trade Michael Penix for Tyreek Hill or someone like that.
Yeah.
In week 6, like it's going to happen. And, I just like any older wide receiver, it might be like Mike Evans and another useful piece, let's just say, I'm trying to think of a running back that might have a Joe Mixon if he's killing it, I drafted Michael Penix not because I'm ever going to use him, but he will be desirable to those bottom 4 teams, and they will give up older assets for him in the money weeks in the second half of the season. So
they have to. They have no choice because those players, the Tyreek Hills, the Cooper Kupps, those guys, the Devontae Adams, if they're producing at an insane level this year, those guys are going to die on their rosters, and they're not worth anything dead when they're 32 years old. They're not when they're Keenan Allen. They're not worth anything. So that's a good strategy like that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. When you draft Michael Penix, you need to have a plan for him, right? Yeah. And you can always get your first round pick back at worst case, like absolute worst case. So, and then another scenario is that let's say that somehow they move on from Kirk Cousins, contract be damned. We've seen that already. And Aaron Rodgers retires. I'm just making up a hypothetical here. And Kirk Cousins is the next Jets quarterback. Now you have like a stock split if you have both of them, right? Because now you have the starting. Yeah. So there's a lot of
that's possible.
Yep. Lad McConkey. People love him. He's going now in the first round of rookie superflex drafts.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll start with, are you on him for fantasy football? And we'll start with that.
Yeah. How could you not be?
Okay.
Right? We talked about it before we hopped on the show for a little bit, but you mentioned like what if they're bottom 5 in passing attempts per game? It's what, or bottom and over the season 525 over the season,
30 a game minimum, and that's if they're like worst.
Yeah, and like he's gonna get a 20% target share, guaranteed. I promise you. He gets a 20% target share. Like who else is gonna get the ball on this team? He's playing the slot, man. He's playing in the slot on a team that's coached by Jim Harbaugh. They're gonna run the hell out of the ball, but like that doesn't mean that the receiver is not going to get used. Like there's not a single good receiver on this team outside of him, and he's playing in the slot. If he caught 100 passes this year, I would genuinely not be surprised. And that's crazy to say as for a rookie, but like he's gonna be the easy check down guy for Justin Herbert, who's wildly accurate and delivers balls on the money.
So no downside for Lad here. You think that he's got one of the highest floors of any of these receivers in the top 50?
Yeah, I think he does for sure. I think he's an asset that, like I said, assets who are almost guaranteed to go up in value. Probably him. Like you could probably go trade him after this next season, as bearing any crazy injury. Obviously, you could probably go trade him for like the 1/6 in next year's draft.
Oh yeah.
After the season's over, so.
All right. I want to ask you about Blake Corum, the running back that was drafted by the Rams here, because Kyron Williams, again, he is one of the most polarizing veterans in redraft, right? And I've seen, and then obviously in Dynasty, he's still pretty highly ranked, but he's an interesting player. They draft Blake Corum. Kyron missed some time last year. So where are you going to be on Blake Corum? And is there any downside we should be talking about here?
I mean, He's what, like a late second, early third guy in
In
Dynasty's rookie
yeah,
drafts, right?
yeah, in like rookie drafts, he's going at the end of the second round, like two
Yeah.
five to 2.8.
Okay. Yeah. So like a mid-second round guy.
Yeah.
I mean, like I think at that pick he's got a lot of upside. I mean, we've seen Sean McVay recycle and reuse running backs like none other, in these recent years. I mean, look at Cam Akers, look at Darrell Henderson, right? There's so many guys who just come in, have a good year, and then it's like they're trash the next year somehow. It's so weird. I don't know if Kyron will be that. I think Kyron's really, really good. Like I think when you watched him last year, like his vision was elite. He actually looked pretty explosive. Obviously, he was a touchdown. He was good. He was good in the red zone too.
Mhm.
Good receiving back. Stafford loves him. They loved him enough to give him like an 85% snap share or whatever it was. It was ridiculous. So
Do you think though
yeah.
they did that because they wanted to or because they had to? They literally had. I mean, who was the guy that they had? Evans, right?
Zach Evans,
Zach Evans,
like from Ole Miss, I think. Yeah,
right. And he's basically
yeah,
on a roster bubble. He sucked. I mean, they
yeah,
brought in Darrell Henderson off the couch, man. Play when
yeah. They
Kyron
really
was out.
did. They really did bring in Darrell Henderson off the couch. I don't. I think they needed like a running back too. They needed a guy they can give. Maybe Kyron goes from 85% snap share to 70.
I'll take it.
He's a top 5 back in snap share. He's probably still a top 5 back in fantasy. So I don't know if Kyron's somebody I really, or sorry, excuse me, I don't know if Blake Corum's somebody I really want to roster.
Right.
But if Kyron Williams gets hurt, he's hurt right now.
You'll be able to get a first round. You'll be able to get a first for him.
Yeah, you'll be able to get a first for him, or at minimum, you're probably getting like a 15 point per game player for the season who's a rookie. So it's like, and if Blake Corum comes in with Kyron hurt and looks phenomenal, they're not giving Kyron a second contract. I can promise you that.
Yeah,
with this current running back market. So
totally. And then something to be aware of: Blake Corum is already over 23 and a half years old. So
he's a little
rookie,
older,
but a little bit older.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, Matt, Max, I could talk to you for like 2-3 hours about this stuff, but I want to be respectful of your time a little bit here. Who's somebody you think that is just there's so much downside that I mean, we talked about Keon Coleman. Is there another rookie? Doesn't matter the format that you're just buyer beware on. You almost laugh every time someone else drafts them. I can make you a couple. The Troy Franklin thing is really where I was trying to angle you because you mentioned it before. He goes in the second round of rookie draft, 4th round draft capital, and you already crapped on Bo Nix. So where are you at on Troy Franklin?
I think he was really good in college, but it was more of like he was good because of the offense and because of the scheme. I don't think he was good because of his skill set. And clearly NFL teams think that too because he went so late. I noticed when I was watching film on Troy Franklin, he had like a lack of effort. Like I never saw. Yeah, he took plays off. He was never blocking, and like a lot of it felt like when he wasn't on the field, it was because they didn't trust him to be out there and when he wasn't getting the ball, which is a huge red flag for me. Obviously, Sean Payton can coach that out of him. I don't mind Troy Franklin in like the late second round in Dynasty because it's just like at that point you're taking, in my opinion, late seconds are like dart throws of like upside. So I don't mind that because like he could easily slot into the wide receiver 1 role because he has Bo Nix, his college quarterback there. Not the end of the world for me. Right. That's not the guy to me that is like the idiot. If you're picking him, it's probably still Jayden Daniels.
Another polarizing guy is Jermaine Burton. He seems to be he's got first round talent. Then why do you go in the 3rd round? I know there was some injuries and there was some off the field attitude stuff, but is Burton a guy that you want to roster?
Yeah, he is. He's a guy I want to roster. I'd rather have him over Troy Franklin easily. I'd rather have him over like Blake Corum. I mean, him and like Xavier Legette for me is like a conversation. And Xavier Legette was first round pick.
Yeah.
So like I think Jermaine Burton has a lot of upside. I like his skill set, 1, and 2. It's so blatantly obvious that T. Higgins is gone. So now he slots into the wide receiver 2 role with Joe Burrow. And we've seen what that's done for T. Higgins. So yeah, Jermaine Burton is another one of those guys who I feel like can only go up in value. And even if he doesn't have a great rookie year, T. Higgins is still gone. So in this next offseason, you can trade him for more than you drafted him for. Jermaine Burton's a great pick.
Yeah, that's a player that you could probably, even if he doesn't do anything in September or early October, Max, and he's on your roster, you could, if you want him, you could probably trade for him, right? If he's like getting, 35% snaps and, 2-3 targets a game, that's an easy buy low. But if there's a rebuilding team, I think you can add a pick to Burton and again, get into that productive wide receiver of your contending team. There is plan. Like when you draft these guys, it's just more than player takes. You should have a plan for them, right? Like, and that's what we were talking about, like drafting players that people like in that range.
Yeah. The number one thing with Dynasty is just being like intentional with what you're doing, whether it's like tanking, not tanking. Like what I see every year is there are teams that have like a mixture of like you'll have like Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and then they'll also have like Lab McConkey and Ricky Pearsall. It's like you don't want to be in that in between range of like you're going to be good enough to maybe squeeze into the playoffs, but you'll never win a ring and you'll never have an elite draft pick from having the 1-1. Like that's no man's land. That's like the Steelers in real life. Like you don't want to be that. Like you and the difference is you don't have an NFL fan base selling out a stadium giving you money. Like you're basically just feeding the pot, being a middle ground team for nothing. So intention is really important. And same goes for like every single player. Having a goal for Michael Penix or Blake Corum or JJ McCarthy or whatever it is, you need to think that through as you're drafting these players. Yeah.
Max, baby, you did it again. You come here, you deliver as always. You get up nice and early for me. What time is it out? You're in Arizona, right?
Yeah, it's 8:20 right now.
Do you get up early or you do special for me here?
Oh no, I'm a late night guy. I went to bed at 3:00 in the morning.
Dude, you are the best. How come I get the good treatment? How come you never complain? You show up. You come prepared all the time.
I mean, I mean, look at you, man. You know your stuff about Dynasty. You can talk your talk. You're funny. You're a good host. Love RotoWire. How could I not get up early?
You're the man. All right, you follow Max as I do on Twitter, or I say the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, at FantayFBallAZ. Right?
Yeah,
You go there. He posts a lot of stuff there. But if you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok, you're probably already following Max. But just in case you're not, Max, give it out right here. What's the TikTok handle?
Yeah, it's just FantayFBallAZ. That's obviously fantasy football in Arizona. So FantayFBallAZ, you can follow me over there. There's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. A lot of YouTube content coming out in these next few weeks. I haven't done long form stuff before, like your typical like wide receiver rankings and tiers videos, but I'll be doing that this year. So excited for that. But
this is like breaking news here. Like you're getting into the YouTube game now, huh?
Yeah, getting to YouTube a little bit. Just been a short form TikTok guy for a while, but gotta break some new barriers and get uncomfortable.
Well, also once you master a certain platform, it's a new challenge. You're like, okay, you see people doing it, you're like, I could do that, right? Like,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you get bored making TikToks for 2 years. I mean, it's almost like going through the motions now. So,
but I can tell you though, I still watch all your stuff. You either that or you're faking the passion because it's still. I still.
I love it. Still, I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. If I know what you're saying, it's like you're ready for another challenge. Yep. What do you think? What do you think is the future like with I mean YouTube is here to stay. I think that's also a smart move strategically because YouTube seems like the one that's going to last no matter what. Do you see anything else coming up? Like where do you think TikTok is going over the next year or 3 years?
I mean, dude, it might get banned so that there's that. But I mean, even if TikTok were to get banned, which I think is like such a low chance, but even if it were to get banned, Instagram Reels would absolutely blow up. There's always going to be another platform. There's always something else. Look at Vine a couple years back. There's always going to be something.
Vine was TikTok, right? Wasn't Vine?
Yeah, Vine was. I think Vine, like Musically or TikTok.
Musically.
Yeah. Those like there's all those platforms. I think YouTube and Instagram will probably stay.
YouTube for sure. YouTube is like because I think like you see like former television stars and like news political analysts going to YouTube over these other traditional mediums to create content and monetize.
Oh, people don't watch the news anymore. People don't watch the news. People don't watch, the TV. They go on their computer, they go on their phone. So
well, I know you're immersed in sports, but when you do get new like political news or just like that, where do you consume your news?
I mean, it's tough. I try to stay out of
when there's is it TikTok? Is it Instagram?
I don't know. It's kind of everywhere. It's if I really want to be educated on whatever's going on in politics or in the world, I'm probably just gonna take a Google search and then read a bunch of different articles from a bunch of different places and become well versed. Because I don't want to read one side of the story. I want to read whether it's a right, left, whatever. I want to read both sides to see what's going on. I get some politics stuff on my TikTok and my Twitter every now and then, but like that's just because the election's coming up and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like an algorithm thing. But
totally.
I wouldn't say that I search it I wouldn't say I go out and search for that as much as most people do.
Yeah, I like the news stuff that like where there's like a dude sitting in a chair and he's like yelling at college kids and they're yelling at him and like
yeah. What's his name? That's I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, he's got like a little like he's got high hair. Yeah,
Charlie something.
Charlie Kirk. That's it.
Yeah,
I love those videos. Those videos are great. Those
Me
videos
too.
are great. I mean, he's talking to a bunch of kids who are just like absolutely clueless. Have no
totally. It's great. And the other one, I don't know if you're getting this. Are you getting the balloon popping dating show coming up on your feed at all?
Yes, I get that too. But some guy walks in and it's just pop, 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 pop. Like, damn, that must hurt the ego. That would hurt me.
Oh, and then they like, for anyone that hasn't seen this yet, it's a dating show, and then you basically, it's all superficial based on looks, and they're like, pretend it's not, and then they're like, they pop their balloon if they don't want to date the person, and then they ask like, well, what's wrong? They're like, oh yeah, I don't like his pants, they don't fit right, or something like that. Or,
I saw one was like, I don't like your glasses. It's like,
yeah,
not see? Like, what are we talking about?
Search balloon pop dating show. You will just be it. Yeah, that's like death scroll at night thing. I'm so funny. It's so glad that you got
TikTok brain's getting to you.
All right, man. We'll be back next week with another Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast.